Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. Sometimes it ambushes you in your own living room, played back on a tiny screen, revealing a reality so grotesque it shatters everything you thought you knew about your life, your marriage, and the person you shared it with for 20 years. My name is Rob Miller. I'm 49, a regional sales manager for a medical device company based out of the Chicago area. My territory covers most of the Midwest, Illinois, Wisconsin, Iowa, sometimes further afield. It means I travel a lot. Motels off I-80, generic conference rooms, rushed airport meals. It's the life I signed up for. The life that paid the bills. The life that allowed my wife, Karen, and me to build what I thought was a solid, comfortable existence in Naperville. Nice house in a quiet subdivision, decent cars, the whole suburban dream package, minus the 2.5 kids. Minus any kids, actually. That was a conscious choice, a cornerstone of our life together. Or so I thought. A few weeks ago, the carefully constructed facade of that life began to crumble. It started, ironically enough, with an event that initially felt like a potential, albeit painful, repair job. Karen, my wife of 2 decades, broke down one evening after I returned from a particularly long trip to Michigan. Through a veritable flood of tears and gut-wrenching apologies, she confessed she'd made a mistake. A terrible, stupid, isolating, one-time mistake during my absence. She'd slept with someone, an old colleague she'd bumped into, she claimed, someone who caught her at a moment of weakness and loneliness. She swore it meant nothing, that the guilt was consuming her, that it was over before it truly began, and that it only reinforced how much she loved me, how much our life together meant to her. She begged for forgiveness, pleaded for another chance, swore on everything holy it would never, ever happen again. And I sat there, stunned into silence. Shock, betrayal, a white-hot flash of anger. All the standard reactions churned inside me. But beneath that initial maelstrom, buried under 20 years of shared history, inside jokes, weathered storms, and comfortable routines, a part of me actually started to consider it. Forgiveness. Was it possible? People make mistakes, don't they? Especially when loneliness creeps in. When routines get stale. We didn't have children. That had been her very firm decision early on, one I eventually, albeit reluctantly, agreed to. Karen had never felt the maternal urge, she'd said repeatedly. She valued her independence, our freedom as a couple, the ability to take spontaneous trips, though we rarely did, and focus on careers, mostly mine, truthfully, as her professional ambitions had faded over the years. I, on the other hand, had pictured noisy family holidays, coaching Little League, the chaotic energy of kids filling the house. But I loved Karen. Her conviction on the child-free issue was unwavering, presented as essential to her happiness. So, I yielded. We built our life around that explicit agreement. Just the two of us, a team against the world, unburdened by the commitments and compromises parenthood demanded. Our bond, our partnership, that was supposed to be the strong central pillar supporting everything. Her tearful confession seemed to lean heavily on this shared foundation. "It wasn't about wanting something else, Rob," she choked out, clutching my hand. "It wasn't about family or children or greener pastures. You know I never wanted those complications. Our life, just us, is what I cherish. This was just stupid, meaningless. A horrible lapse in judgment fueled by loneliness and maybe too much Chardonnay. It horrified me. It only proved how much our life, the one we chose together, means to me." Her words skillfully wove the infidelity into the narrative of our unique child-free bond, framing it almost as an aberration that proved the rule. Part of me, the part desperate to salvage 2 decades, desperately wanted to believe her, to accept the meticulously crafted apology, categorize it as a singular human failing, and embark on the difficult path of rebuilding the trust that had been undeniably fractured. 20 years is a significant investment of time, love, energy. You don't just detonate that over one drunken mistake, do you? Especially when the perpetrator seems so genuinely remorseful. But even amidst the emotional fog, something felt dissonant, a nagging wrong note beneath the symphony of tears and apologies. The story was almost too neat, the sequence of events, the chance encounter, the moment of weakness, the immediate regret, felt slightly rehearsed. Was the colleague married? Where did it happen? Her answers to my tentative questions were vague, slippery, and maybe it was the way she avoided holding my gaze for too long, her eyes darting away at crucial moments. Or perhaps it was the faint echo of a memory, glimpsing an odd, quickly deleted text message on her phone a few weeks prior, something about discretion that I dismissed as work-related gossip at the time, but now pinged ominously in my subconscious. Maybe it was just simple gut instinct, that primitive internal alarm system screaming that the threat level was higher than reported, that the damage was more extensive than the initial assessment indicated. The idea that our carefully constructed, child-free life, built on what I thought was profound mutual agreement and unwavering respect, could be so easily threatened by even a single infidelity was bad enough. The insidious growing suspicion that there was more, that this confession was merely the tip of a much larger, dirtier iceberg, became an unbearable obsession. I tried to push it down. I tried to focus on work, on routine. But the doubt gnawed at me relentlessly. It poisoned moments of quiet, turned comfortable silences tense. Was she thinking about him? Was she comparing me? Was she lying now about it being over? The what-ifs multiplied like bacteria in a petri dish. Living with that suffocating uncertainty felt impossible. It felt like slow-motion suffocation, the air gradually being sucked out of our home, our marriage. That's when the unthinkable became the actionable. Driven by a desperate need for certainty, for irrefutable truth, one way or the other, I did something I'd always found morally repugnant in movies or news stories. I decided to spy on my own wife, in my own home. The decision felt like a betrayal in itself, a violation of the very intimacy I was trying to verify. But the alternative, living indefinitely in a fog of suspicion, potentially rebuilding a life on a foundation of lies, felt even worse. I needed ground truth. Rationalizing it as a diagnostic tool, a necessary evil to either confirm the all-clear or expose the full extent of the infection, I ordered a hidden camera online. It arrived in discreet packaging 2 days later, a small black cube disguised as a generic USB phone charger. Perfect for plugging into the little-used outlet in the corner of our main living room behind the ficus tree. It offered a wide-angle view covering the front entryway, the main seating area, and the hallway leading towards the bedrooms. It was motion-activated, recorded decent HD video to a micro SD card, and was utterly unremarkable to the casual eye. Setting it up felt clandestine and deeply shameful. I waited until Karen was out running errands on a Thursday morning. My hands felt clumsy, almost trembling, as I plugged it in, adjusting the angle slightly, making sure the tiny lens wasn't obstructed. Was I being paranoid? Was I destroying the last vestiges of trust myself by resorting to this? The internal debate raged, but the need to know won out. If she was telling the truth, I reasoned, the camera would exonerate her, expose my own insecurity, and maybe, just maybe, allow genuine healing to begin. If she wasn't, well, I had to face that reality, however brutal. I activated the recording, checked the connection to my phone app briefly, then walked out the door to catch my flight for a 3-day regional sales conference in Minneapolis, feeling like I just armed a silent, patient bomb in the heart of my own life. The conference in Minneapolis passed in a haze of forced professionalism. I delivered presentations on autopilot, shook hands with a smile that felt stapled onto my face, participated in breakout sessions while my mind was thousands of miles away, fixated on that tiny, impassive lens silently observing my living room. Every buzz of my phone made my heart leap. Was it an alert? Did the motion detector trigger? What was happening right now? The guilt for my surveillance warred constantly, with the gnawing anxiety about what it might reveal. Sleep was fragmented, filled with disjointed dreams of locked doors, unfamiliar faces, and Karen's tear-streaked face morphing into something unrecognizable. I flew home Sunday afternoon, knots tightening in my stomach with every mile closer to Naperville. The drive from O'Hare felt interminable. Karen greeted me at the door with a hug that lingered perhaps a fraction too long, a brightness in her eyes that felt slightly forced. "Welcome home, honey. How was the conference? Missed you." She chattered brightly about her uneventful weekend, errands, a tedious lunch with her friend Carol, watching a movie alone on Saturday night. Every word felt like a potential lie. Every normal action suspicious. The disconnect between her apparent reality and my secret knowledge was dizzying, nauseating. I needed to be alone to check the footage. I waited, pacing internally, until she announced she was going upstairs to take a long bath. "Distress," she said with a smile. As soon as I heard the water running, I moved. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I walked purposefully to the outlet behind the ficus, my hands surprisingly steady now, fueled by adrenaline and dread. I unplugged the charger, carefully extracting the tiny micro SD card. It felt disproportionately heavy, loaded with potential devastation. Retreating to the sanctuary of my home office, I shut the door firmly, muffling the sound of the running bathwater upstairs. I slid the card into the reader slot on my laptop. The familiar ding as the drive mounted sounded ominous. A folder opened, populated with dozens, maybe hundreds, of short video files, meticulously time-stamped. Motion detection clips ranging from a few seconds to several minutes long. My cursor hovered over the first file from Thursday afternoon, shortly after I'd confirmed my flight takeoff with her via text. Taking a deep breath, I double-clicked. The familiar vista of my living room appeared on screen, bathed in afternoon sunlight. Empty at first. Then the front door opened. Karen walked in, kicked off her shoes, dropped her purse on the console table. Normalcy. A wave of relief washed over me, quickly followed by shame. Maybe I was being paranoid. I fast-forwarded through subsequent clips. Karen tidying up, talking on the phone. Sound wasn't enabled, thankfully, just video. Making coffee. All mundane. Then I landed on a clip, time-stamped 2:17 p.m. Thursday. Motion detected at the front door. My breath caught. The door opened. Karen stood there, smiling, holding it open. A man stepped inside. Tallish, dark hair slicked back, wearing jeans and a black leather jacket. Definitely not the plumber or the FedEx guy. And absolutely not the old colleague she had described in her tearful confession. This man was a complete stranger. My stomach plummeted. Okay, don't jump to conclusions, I told myself frantically. Maybe it's a contractor. Someone selling something door to door. But his body language wasn't that of a salesman. He stepped inside confidently, familiarly. Karen didn't look flustered or annoyed. She looked welcoming, at ease. She said something brief, laughed, then gestured towards the hallway leading back to the bedrooms. They both walked out of the camera's frame. The lens stared impassively at the empty living room. My eyes were glued to the time code, clicking forward at the bottom of the screen. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. An hour and 27 minutes later, the man reappeared, walking briskly from the hallway, alone. He adjusted his jacket, glanced around briefly, then let himself out the front door without a backward look. A few minutes after that, Karen walked back into the living room view from the hallway. She paused, smoothed her hair in the reflection of a darkened TV screen, then picked up a magazine and sat on the sofa, her expression utterly placid, unreadable. My mind struggled to reconcile this with her tearful confession. Who was this guy? Was this another one-time mistake? The timing felt impossibly coincidental. Or was her entire story a carefully constructed lie, a smokescreen to hide something ongoing, something different? With a trembling hand, I navigated to the files from Friday. 10:34 a.m. Motion detected. The front door opened. Karen, wearing workout clothes this time. She let someone in. My blood ran cold. It was a different man, noticeably shorter, blonde, maybe late 30s, carrying a small gym bag. Again, the interaction at the door seemed utterly casual, almost routine, devoid of any flirtation or even much conversation. He stepped inside. She closed the door, and they immediately moved out of frame towards the back of the house. He reappeared just under an hour later, zipping up his bag as he walked towards the door and left. Nausea churned in my stomach. 2 different men in less than 24 hours. This wasn't a desperate, lonely affair. This felt scheduled, transactional. What the hell was going on in my house? Hesitantly, feeling like an archaeologist unearthing something monstrous, I clicked through the remaining clips from Friday and Saturday. The horror compounded. Friday afternoon, around 3 p.m., another man arrived. Older this time, maybe early 60s, well-dressed, driving a late-model Lexus. I saw pull quickly away through the sliver of window visible in the frame. He stayed for nearly 2 hours, Saturday midday, while Karen had supposedly been out running errands according to her later account. Yet another visitor, younger, maybe late 20s, dressed in ripped jeans and a band t-shirt, looking completely out of place in our suburban neighborhood. He was in and out in under 45 minutes. 4 different men, in the space of roughly 48 hours. While I was away on business, grinding to maintain the comfortable lifestyle that apparently served as her operational base. The sheer number, the variety, the apparent frequency, it shattered any remaining hope that this was about a single, regrettable lapse. This wasn't about love or loneliness or finding a connection she lacked with me. This felt cold, compulsive, almost like a business operation. The casualness, the efficiency. It was deeply disturbing on a level beyond mere infidelity. And our agreement, our solemn pact to forgo children, to build a life focused on us, on mutual respect, on avoiding unnecessary complications. What a sick joke that now seemed. She hadn't wanted the complication of a child, but she had apparently welcomed the chaotic, sordid, and infinitely more damaging complication of turning our home into what felt like a revolving door brothel whenever I was out of town. The hypocrisy was staggering. The disrespect for our shared history, our explicit choices, our very home, felt absolute and profane. I stared numbly at the laptop screen. The images of strange men walking into my house, burning themselves into my retinas. Karen's tearful confession, her pleas for forgiveness, her invoking of our special just us bond. It all replayed in my mind now as grotesque theater, a manipulative performance designed to buy her time, to cover her tracks. The woman I thought I knew, the partner of 20 years, the person I had considered forgiving, she simply didn't exist. She was a phantom, replaced by this stranger performing a horrifying, compulsive charade in the intimate sanctuary of our shared life. The shock began to recede, replaced by a glacial rage, cold, hard, and utterly clarifying. There was no room for doubt now, no ambiguity, no possibility of reconciliation or therapy or understanding. There was only the stark, brutal truth, captured in undeniable, high-definition pixels. I meticulously, methodically copied the crucial video files, the arrivals, the departures, clear shots of the different faces, onto a secure, encrypted external hard drive. This wasn't just evidence of infidelity anymore. It felt like documentation of a profound betrayal that bordered on the pathological. My next steps needed to be just as cold, just as methodical. Living with the knowledge for the next 24 hours was an exercise in supreme self-control. Every interaction with Karen felt like navigating a treacherous swamp. I had to feign normalcy, respond to her questions about my trip, listen to her chatter about insignificant household matters, all while the video clips played on a sickening loop in my mind. The urge to scream, to smash things, to grab her and demand an explanation for the inexplicable parade of men was almost overwhelming. But Samantha Chen's advice echoed, "Don't reveal the footage yet. Protect your assets first. Confront her when you are fully prepared." So I played the part of the slightly distant but potentially forgiving husband. I let her believe her one mistake narrative was still tentatively on the table. It bought me time. Time to consult further with Samantha. Time to quietly monitor our joint accounts online. No unusual activity since my return, thankfully. Time to mentally prepare for the confrontation that I knew would be the final ugly act of our marriage. That Monday evening, I made another call, this one harder in some ways than calling the lawyer. I called Mark, my oldest friend, my golfing buddy, the guy who was best man at my wedding 20 years ago. We met for a beer at a quiet bar away from our usual haunts. I needed to talk to someone outside the legal bubble, someone who knew us. I didn't show him the videos. I couldn't bring myself to share that level of degradation. But I told him the core truth. "Mark," I started, swirling the beer in my glass, "remember I told you Karen confessed to an affair? Said it was a one-time thing?" He nodded gravely. "Yeah, Rob. Rough stuff. How are you guys doing with it?" "Well," I took a deep breath. "It wasn't one time, Mark. It wasn't just one guy. While I was in Minneapolis last weekend, it was multiple guys, different guys, coming to the house." Mark stared at me, his jaw slackening slightly. "Multiple? Like how many?" "At least 4, in 3 days." He swore under his breath. "Jesus, Rob, are you sure?" "I'm sure," I said flatly, the certainty chilling my own voice. "I have proof. Undeniable." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of it hanging between us. Mark finally spoke, his voice low. "So what are you going to do?" "Divorce," I said, the word tasting like ash. "There's no other option now, right? This isn't something you fix." "No," Mark agreed quietly, shaking his head. "No, man, that's next level. That's scorched earth. I'm so sorry, Rob. Anything you need, man. Anything." Talking to Mark, getting that external validation from someone who knew the history, knew us, solidified my resolve. It wasn't an overreaction. It was the only sane response. Armed with legal counsel, irrefutable evidence, and the support of my oldest friend, I chose the next evening for the confrontation. I needed it to be over. Karen had made dinner, seemingly trying to restore a sense of normalcy. She was perhaps operating under the assumption that time, and her performance of contrition, was healing the wound. As she cleared the plates, I took a steadying breath. "Karen," I began, keeping my voice deliberately calm, neutral. "We need to talk again, about your mistake." She turned from the sink, her expression instantly shifting into one of careful, practiced remorse. "Of course, Rob, anything. I know it takes time. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes." "Good," I interrupted, cutting off the anticipated platitudes. "Because I need some clarification. You were very specific. It was one time. With your old colleague, Dave. Is that correct?" "Yes," she whispered, eyes downcast. "A stupid, horrible, one-time mistake. It meant nothing. I swear." "It meant nothing," I echoed softly. "Because our life together, just us, no kids, no complications, that's what was important. That was our agreement, right? Simplicity. Focus on us." She nodded eagerly, perhaps misinterpreting my line of questioning as a step towards understanding, towards forgiveness. "Exactly, Rob. You get it. That's why it was so horrifying to me, because it threatened us." That was the moment. I stood up, walked over to the counter where my tablet lay waiting, screen dark. I picked it up, unlocked it with a quick gesture, and navigated to the saved video file folder. I turned the tablet towards her, its screen illuminating the dimming kitchen. "Then maybe you can explain this," I said, my voice dropping, losing all warmth. I pressed play. The screen showed our living room. The timestamp clearly visible. 2:17 p.m. last Thursday. The front door opened. The first stranger, the one in the leather jacket, walked in. Karen greeted him with that easy, familiar smile before they moved out of frame. Karen's face instantly contorted. The color drained away, leaving her skin chalky white under the kitchen lights. Her eyes darted wildly from the screen to my face, then back again. Disbelief warred with dawning, sickening comprehension. "What? What is this? Where did you get this video?" Her voice was a strangled whisper. "Maybe you recognize this gentleman better." I swiped, playing the clip from Friday morning. The second man, the blonde with the gym bag. Karen flinched as if struck. Or perhaps this distinguished visitor from Friday afternoon. Swipe again. The older man, the Lexus driver. Or maybe Saturday's guest is more memorable. Swipe one last time. The college kid. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps. She physically backed away from the tablet, shaking her head, her eyes wide with cornered panic. The carefully constructed facade of the remorseful wife didn't just crack, it disintegrated into dust. You spied on me," she finally choked out, seizing on the method, ignoring the substance. "You put a hidden camera in our own house? How could you? That's illegal." How could I? The question hung in the air, heavy with irony. My voice, finally unleashed, was laced with ice and fury. "How could you, Karen? You sat right here, looked me in the eye, and cried buckets over one mistake. One. While our house, my house, the home we supposedly built together based on mutual respect and a specific life agreement, apparently had a revolving door policy that would make a bus station jealous. Was any part of your original story true? Was there even a Dave? Or was he just a convenient fiction, a plausible cover for this disgusting parade?" She completely collapsed then. Not the controlled, manipulative weeping from her confession, but raw, guttural sobs of pure exposure, humiliation, and perhaps, finally, the crushing weight of consequences. There were no denials possible, no excuses left. She didn't even try to offer any. She slid down the kitchen cabinets to the floor, a crumpled heap of lies and shattered pretenses, muttering fragments about loneliness, about feeling empty, about making bad choices, about not knowing why. But it all sounded like pathetic noise against the stark visual evidence of her calculated, repeated betrayals. This time, watching her, I felt nothing. No pity, no anger, just a vast cold emptiness where 20 years of shared life used to be. The damage was too complete, the deception too profound. "It's over, Karen," I said, the words flat, final, devoid of emotion. "Our marriage, this life we pretended to have, everything. It's done. I want you out of this house. Tonight." "Rob, no. Please, don't do this. We can fix this. I'll get help. I'll go to therapy. Anything." The pleading felt automatic, desperate, utterly devoid of credibility. "There's nothing left to fix," I stated, my voice unwavering. "This isn't a crack. It's a crater. You didn't just break our vows. You systematically defiled our home. You made a mockery of the life we explicitly agreed to build together. You need to leave. Pack what you can carry in one suitcase. Call a friend. Call your sister. I don't care. But you are not spending another night under this roof." Her protest dissolved into incoherent babbling, pleas interwoven with accusations about my travel, my lack of attention, futile attempts to deflect blame even now. But my resolve was granite. I stood there, impassive, a stranger in my own kitchen, watching her scramble frantically, haphazardly throwing clothes, toiletries, and meaningless possessions into a suitcase. The sounds were surreal. The frantic zipping of the bag, her choked, gasping sobs, the final heavy click of the front door closing behind her into the night. Those sounds weren't just the end of an argument. They were the definitive punctuation mark on the end of my marriage, the end of life as I knew it. As soon as the taillights of the Uber she'd called disappeared down the street, my first call was to the 24-hour locksmith I'd already researched. My second was to Samantha Chen, leaving a brief, grim message. "She's out. File the papers first thing tomorrow." The war was over. The long, messy process of clearing the battlefield had just begun. As predicted, the divorce itself was legally straightforward, if emotionally draining. Samantha Chen skillfully presented the video evidence during preliminary hearings. We never needed to go to a full trial. Its impact was immediate and decisive. Karen's lawyer, facing an insurmountable case regarding marital fault, quickly shifted strategy from denial to damage control, focusing solely on maximizing Karen's financial takeaway. But even there, Samantha held the line. She argued passionately that Karen's behavior wasn't just simple adultery. It was a consistent pattern of extreme misconduct that demonstrated a profound disregard for the marital partnership and its sanctity, occurring within the marital home itself. She highlighted the violation of our specific life agreement, painting a picture of egregious betrayal that went far beyond typical infidelity grounds. While proving direct dissipation of marital assets on the encounters themselves was difficult without financial records from Karen, which weren't forthcoming, Samantha successfully argued that the nature and scale of the betrayal warranted a significantly disproportionate division of assets in my favor. The judge, clearly disturbed by the evidence presented, largely agreed. The final decree awarded me the house outright. I had to refinance to buy out Karen's share of the marital equity, but the calculation of that equity started from a point significantly reduced by the judge citing Karen's fault. After legal fees and the reduced payout, she walked away with a fraction of what she might have expected from a standard 50-50 split in a long-term marriage. She received no spousal support. Stripped of the financial security and comfortable lifestyle I had provided for 2 decades, she was abruptly forced to confront the harsh realities created by her own destructive choices. The legal victory felt necessary, validating. Justice, in its cold, procedural way, had been served. But it brought no joy, only a weary sense of closure on a chapter defined by deceit. The real challenge lay ahead, navigating the wreckage. Returning to the house each night after work in the weeks following her departure felt alien. It was my house, legally and unequivocally mine again. But it felt haunted by the ghosts of her betrayal, contaminated by the presence of those anonymous men. The living room couch, the kitchen counter, the hallway leading to the bedrooms, Everyday spaces now felt overlaid with disturbing mental images from those horrific video clips. Reclaiming the space became a necessary, almost obsessive ritual. I started with the superficial, hiring cleaners for a top-to-bottom scrub-down. Then came the purging. Karen had left behind clothes, books, knickknacks. I boxed it all up ruthlessly, without sentiment, and donated everything to Goodwill. I couldn't stand having her remnants around me. I rearranged all the furniture in the living room, bought new bedding, even replaced the mattress in the master bedroom. The thought of sleeping where she might have entertained her visitors was intolerable. I painted walls, changed light fixtures, trying to physically erase the lingering sense of violation. It was a slow, ongoing process of reclaiming territory, both physical and psychological. The deeper wounds, naturally, are harder to mend. The loss of trust isn't just about romantic partners. It feels broader, a fundamental crack in my perception of relationships, of shared history, of vulnerability. How could I have lived with someone for 20 years and missed this? Was I blind, stupid, willfully ignorant? The questions circle endlessly sometimes, especially in the quiet hours of the night. The child-free agreement adds another layer of complexity to the grief. There's a lingering bitterness, a sense of having sacrificed a potential path, fatherhood, for a partnership that turned out to be a sham. Would having children have changed anything? Prevented her compulsive behavior? Probably not, I tell myself. Her issues seem deeper, more personal than just marital dissatisfaction. But the what-if still stings sometimes. It feels like I held up my end of a bargain that she treated with utter contempt from the start. Healing isn't linear. Some weeks feel productive. I focus on work, reconnect with Mark and other friends who've been incredibly supportive, even manage to enjoy the quiet solitude of my reclaimed home. Other weeks, a news story, a chance remark, or just a stray memory can trigger a fresh wave of anger or sadness. Samantha recommended a therapist, and I've started going. Talking helps, slowly untangling the knots of grief, betrayal, and anger. The hidden camera sits disassembled in a box in the back of my office closet now. A morally ambiguous tool that delivered a brutal but necessary truth. I don't regret using it. Living in ignorance would have been a different kind of torture, a slow poisoning. The truth, however ugly, allowed me to cut out the cancer, to cauterize the wound, to begin the long, arduous process of rebuilding. Rebuilding a life at nearly 50, alone, wasn't the future I envisioned when I said I do all those years ago. It wasn't part of the agreement. But like any project manager faced with a catastrophic system failure and unexpected scope change, you don't just walk away. You assess the damage, you salvage the core infrastructure, you develop a new plan, and you start executing, one careful, deliberate step at a time. My foundation was rocked, but it didn't completely crumble. This house is mine. This life is mine. And I will rebuild it, piece by painstaking piece, on the solid ground of hard-won, ugly truth.